Hey guys, this is Nirupam from the Underwater Photography Guide and Blue Water Photo. I'm here today with Andy from CNC to go over our thoughts on the amazing new YS-D3 lightning strobe after 7 months of shooting. If you're here to see some sample images, please click the link in the description or skip ahead to the 40-minute mark. Let's get started.
Hi everyone, thanks for zooming in. And this is Andy Salmon. I work for CNC Underwater Photography, CNC USA, and I'm also an ambassador for CNC Japan. I'm the technical rep in Southern California and also the sales rep, same area. So what we want to do is talk about some of the new products this year. We had DEMA in late 2019, and then as you know, COVID-19 hit and it's kind of slowed everything down a little bit. So Nirupam and I wanted to put together a little recording here where everybody could have a look at some of these new products and find out what they're like after we've been diving them for a while. I've actually had the products for right around 7 months. I think I picked up my first strobe and dome port right around March, right around when COVID hit, right? Maybe it was April, I don't remember. But I've had it out probably on 60, getting closer to 70 dives, a lot of hours underwater, and I found out a lot of things about it. So I want to go through it today so everybody understands it thoroughly. These products are, revolutionary for where we're at in the current technology today. So I'm going to start with the YS-D3 Lightning Strobe. And this particular product, you may be familiar with our older product, the YS-D2J. That's still around, but that will probably end up being discontinued in another year and a half as stock starts to run out. But there's still a fair inventory of these. Matter of fact, you probably start to see sale prices on them. I know Black Friday's coming up as we're doing this, and there's a Black Friday sale on it. But the D3 is really the meat of the matter today, and I want to go through some of the improvements that we made over the YS-D2J. I'm going to hold the two strobes together for just a moment, and you can see there's a slight size difference. The D3 being a little bit bigger, it's a little bit bigger around, a little bit longer, and got a little wider face on the front of it, which is important technically to get better light. So our overall design was led by the loss of the YS-250, let's say. The YS-250 was a great pro strobe for a long time. You can see how much bigger that is than the D3. It's ginormous, basically. And that strobe did an excellent job all around, fast recycle time, pretty long battery life, but it's very large. So we wanted to basically get this kind of performance, YS-250 type performance, in a smaller package. A package we hoped would be the same size as the D2, but of course you can't quite put all that juice in here and expect the poor thing not to just basically burn up. So the first thing we had to do was a complete redesign of the electronics. It does use AA batteries, just like the predecessor, the YS-D2J. And part of the reason for the growth of the housing of the strobe itself was to initiate a little bit better cooling. We also added this cool looking metal band. It's not just there for cosmetics. It actually has a cooling capacity so that the front end of the strobe, the business end of the strobe, doesn't overheat too easily. So that was added, a little bit of length, a little bit of width, a little heavier strobe. Inside, the part you can't see is what's really important, and that's the part that's going to get us up over the hump to equality with a YS-250 as far as strobe performance. So we added larger condensers, a dual set of condensers, larger condensers, or what some people call capacitors inside of the strobe. Capacitors or condensers are just an energy dam. So the batteries by themselves, whatever the voltage is from the batteries, of course, the larger the battery, usually the more voltage it has generally. But with 4 little AA batteries, there's not a lot of voltage to work with. So the batteries pipe juice into the condenser, and that's why you have strobe recycle time. That's why there's anywhere from a moment up to a few seconds, depending on what type of strobe or whose strobe it is. And that's one of the performance parameters we wanted to maintain that the YS-250 had, was that lightning fast recycle time. Well, we were able to do it. The D3 ended up with a recycle time of about 1.7 seconds. We were hoping for about 1.5, 1.6, which is right where the D2J is. So we're about a tenth of a second slower than the D2J at full power. However, we were able to manage to get a little better response from the electronics inside. We did a much better job of cleaning those up compared to the D2J. And because of that, the response time or the recycle time in powers below full power are much faster than the D2J. The D2J at half power, I don't remember what the exact recycle time was, but on this strobe, it's 0.6 seconds. So just over a half a second when you're not shooting at full power. That is great. That's also aided by not only a ready light on the back of the strobe. I believe there's batteries in this strobe. Yep. See a little ready light blinking, blinking, blinking there. It's ready to go. It's red, steady red means you're ready to go. That ready light comes on from a full power flash in 1.7 seconds. At a half power flash, that will not even have a chance to come fully back on, but the strobe is ready to go. So we put an audible into it. So when you're firing above the guide number system on the power controller of 22 or at 33, full power or half power basically, what that means is that you'll know the strobe is ready just by audibly hearing it. It'll beep and it'll tell you it's ready to fire again. So it'll give kind of a dual feedback to you if you're shooting in full power. So if you're at guide number 33 on the power controller, which is full power all the way, full blast, which is a lot of light, if you fire the strobe and then you hear a beep, it's ready to fire again at half power. So if you're in some kind of a fast moving dynamic situation, you're shooting sharks at a shark feed, you're shooting sea lions off our west coast here or wherever, something moving really, really quick, and you need to be able to take that second shot. Half power is plenty for most of our normal distances underwater with wide angle, which would be 2-3 feet, something like that. You might even get kind of a bracketing effect where with full power, you might be overlighting it and not realize it or not have time because it's such a dynamic situation to really review the back of your screen. I know I get in that situation quite a bit when I'm working with especially fast reef sharks and things like that, or mako sharks off our coast here. Tiger sharks, big great whites, a little bit slower, but great whites as well, you're working from a cage, so you're in a fixed position, you're not swimming around with them or anything like that. So having that ability to audibly know that you can take another shot right now before the full recycle has happened is nice. It's a big advantage. Now you can ignore it. And if you need the full power, of course, you can wait for the full 1.7 second recycle time. So it's 1.7 seconds at full power, or if you fire at full power and you wait 0.6 seconds, you can shoot again, which is really kind of a cool thing. And that's because of the redesign of the electronics. So this is light years, pardon the pun, light years ahead of the YS-D2J in its electronic capability. The D2J had a guide number of 32. This has a guide number of 33. So there's a skosh more light on the very, very top of it. If you don't understand the way guide numbers work, you can simply think of it like this. I don't want to get too in depth with this, but guide numbers are all measured on all types of flashes, whether they're topside flashes or they're underwater strobes, usually at 1 meter and at ISO 100. Most of us don't shoot at ISO 100, okay? So whatever, but when we go underwater, and they're measured in air, by the way, or topside, when we go underwater, we lose about half of that power. That energy gets dispersed through the water because it's an 800 times denser medium. So if I'm telling you I've got a guide number of 33, what does that mean? Well, the bigger the number, the more power. Just like I've got a 400 horsepower engine in my Maserati, but I've got a 100 horsepower engine in my Toyota. Okay, well, I've got 4 times the power, but there's other things, of course, that come into play. So with a guide number, when you take it underwater, when we say we have a guide number of 33, for instance, or 32, for instance, instantaneously cut it in half. As soon as it goes underwater, just cut it in half. It's going to have half that amount of power in clear water. If the water's turbid, it could be even a little bit less. So variable conditions could affect that as well. So basically, what a guide number tells you is what you could shoot as an f-stop at a given distance at ISO 100. Okay, so yeah, we don't shoot at ISO 100, but I'm kind of leading you up to something here. So bear with me for just a second longer. So if I fire this strobe at full power at f16 at ISO 100 underwater at 1 meter, it should expose a 80% gray board correctly. All right, that's what that means. 1 meter is a little over 3 feet. So, okay, that's basically 3 feet f16 strobe. That's the same as a YS-250. The big difference is the YS-250 will only recycle at full power at 1.9 seconds. So this is faster than a YS-250, yet has the same amount of power. Well, one of the other performance criteria or parameters for a good strobe is what kind of beam angle do we have. So yeah, you can put all the power you want in a very, very tight beam and it doesn't mean anything. You need to have wide angle coverage. When we shoot a 16mm lens, we're shooting a lens of about 110 degrees on the diagonal, basically. So we've got a 100-degree frame, basically, on a standard wide angle zoom lens, like a 16-35 or something like that. On a fisheye lens, of course, we have 180 degrees. So we need some wide coverage, especially if we want to cover a large subject area. Let's say you're shooting a shipwreck or something like that underwater, or big reef scenic where you really want to light up the coral and the colors and soft corals and things like that, and maybe a diver in the background. So it's important to have a nice wide beam angle as well. So with the YS-250, we had a beam angle with the diffuser of 115 degrees, okay? And that does take a little bit of the power down. We'll talk about that in a second, don't let me forget. With the diffuser on the YS-D3, we've got 110 degrees. So very, very similar in angle of view. We've got a little difference in the vertical capability of the light and the beam angle and the horizontal. The horizontal is a little bit wider. I'm going to lead into the flash tubes in just a second, but we've got 110 degrees across horizontally and about 100 degrees this way. So when you see our statistics, what am I looking for? the performance statistics, I guess. What you're going to see is that there's a slight angle, beam angle change when you go from vertical to horizontal. And that is because we are using a flash tube that is rectangular in shape. Now, one of the things we really, really worked on was trying to get a circular flash tube into this. The YS-250 had or has I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a circular flash tube. So it was our feeling before this strobe was built that the only way to really get a good coverage of light in a circle was to have a circular flash tube. So the problem with a circular flash tube is the flash tube itself has a lot of real estate, much, much more than even the two flash tubes that go across here. There are two in this one, as opposed to the one in the D2J. So what that does is it means that as the flash is triggered, to get that flash triggered all the way around the circular flash tube with that long extra real estate to get that nice round and wide coverage, you increase recycle time. So it's one of those parameters of building and engineering a strobe that locks you in. If you put a circular flash tube in a small system like this, even with the big condensers we've got here, those condensers are large enough that you couldn't get much more in the package and still have adequate battery to trigger the thing. We'd have a 2 or 2.5 second recycle time. And that's exactly what you see with many of our competitors if you test them. Don't always just look on what they say on paper, because manufacturers tend to fudge the numbers a little bit. So be cautious with that. So we actually we're able to keep the recycle time low and get circular flash tube results because we put 2 flash tubes in, but that didn't do the trick. The real technology breakthrough for us was we put a toroidal aspherical lens over the flash tubes themselves. Now, what toroidal means is, pardon me, is that it's kind of a donut-shaped effect. So the cover that goes over it is rectangular, but if you were to take one out, I don't have one here, I'm sorry, but it's arced. Okay, so it's got an aspheric curve to it, and then it's also got kind of a shape on the inside, on the concave side, that causes it to act or give a toroidal type shape or a circular donut like shape. So basically by putting that thing on there and that little silly little plastic thing, that optical plastic thing that we had to put over there, we had to make a mold for that thing. It cost us a fortune, but it allowed us to keep the recycle time and keep the package small with a rectangular type of a double flash tube inside there. So now we got the best of both worlds. We were able to keep a small package, fast recycle like a 250, and get the kind of beam angle or the coverage from the light that a circular flash tube type of strobe has. So we really kind of got the best of both worlds in that. So that was a great a great win for us. And that's what gives this little strobe the performance. Now, I mentioned diffusers a minute ago, and most of us use diffusers. People just generally will say something like, well, it widens the beam, which it does, or it softens the light. And it tends to do those things too. To shoot the strobe as it is, it's got an 80 by 80 degree angle, dead on 80, dead on 80. When you put the standard diffuser that is included with the strobe, it's 100 degrees this way, vertically, by 110 degrees. So that little aspherical toroidal lens that's inside there gave us good quality light over a wider spread area instead of just dead centered light. Dead centered light leaves hot spots in a strobe. So with that aspherical toroidal lens, we were really able to get much better performance out of the entire system, both in the fact that we were able to keep the package smaller and keep the recycle time high, but also to spread the beam much more evenly than we would if we didn't have it. Without that, it would be a very, very narrow beam, very intense narrow beam, and then light dispersion on the outside of that. So we didn't want that. We wanted to keep as even a beam as we possibly could. So recycle time, 1.7 seconds, 0.6 seconds at half power, or even when you're in full power mode, you get that audible 0.6 seconds. So it lets you know, even though you're not in half power, you've got a half power shot. Duration of the batteries is something that's very, very important for all of us in strobes. We don't want to have to change batteries all the time, and we want it to be convenient. Well, the D3 Lightning uses the AA type of a battery. And I don't know if you can see this one. I'll put it a little closer to the camera and hopefully it focuses. But that's an NO Pro. One thing before I talk a little bit more about batteries is this strobe is like a race car. It wants premium fuel. It does not want your old Eneloop 1800 milliamp batteries. It won't do you much good if you put old batteries in it. Yeah, it'll work. Matter of fact, if you put alkaline batteries in it, even a good pair of alkaline or good set of alkaline batteries, it almost doubles the recycle time. So that should tell you something right there. And it also almost halves the number of flashes you're going to get. Well, the plus side is anywhere in the world, you can find batteries. Let's say you lost yours, some security person took them from your baggage or whatever, all the crazy kind of things that can happen. And you still want to shoot, well, you could still shoot with alkaline batteries. It's just not going to be as effective. So if you buy one of these strobes or a set of these strobes, do yourself a favor, spend 16 bucks and go out and buy the best nickel metal hydride AA batteries you can find. And one of the better ones out there is the Eneloop Pro. There's others out there. I'm not a spokesperson for Eneloop, but I know they really work on this strobe after 7 months of shooting it. So AA batteries, and they will give us at full power 220 flashes. Now, that's at guide number 33. For most of the wide angle work that I do, I'm not going to use guide number 33 because that means I'd be at f16 all the time at my 3-foot strobe to subject distance. I don't shoot at f16 that often unless I'm shooting against a very strong backlit scene where the sun is, coming down through the water and I'm shooting back towards the sun and still trying to light something in front of it. Most of the time, half power is plenty, and that will almost double the duration. So you'll have over 400 flashes at half power. Quite often, and just the other day, I was out in very shallow water and I got lucky out here off the California coast. And I was shooting sea lions in 6 to 10 feet of water most of the time. So there was ample sunlight coming through, but it's still the murky water of California, the temperate stuff. And I shot the strobe at quarter power, bumped the ISO up to 400, and I went through an entire 128 gig card, which on my camera, I think gives me 970 some images. And the strobes didn't even seem to be slowing down. So I don't know. I can't swear to God that it'll always last that long, but with the batteries that I've got that were freshly charged that the day before and put in, that night, I was able to get over 900 flashes at quarter power. I had to use ISO 400, which I think nowadays with most of the cameras, ISO 400 is a breeze, no problem. Years ago, we would have never thought to do that because of the noise that would have been created. So enough about that. One of the greatest things that I love about this strobe compared to traveling with my old standby, which, this was my strobe from whenever it came out in 2005, 2004 till 2019. This was all I used. And I have to travel with 4 of them to make sure that I've got 2 different sets ready to go all the time and then backups as well. So I've got to travel with 4 generally I travel with 5 strobes. So there's a backup to the 2 different systems that I'm using if everything that I'm doing is wide angle. So this strobe weighs 1.33 pounds. The YS-250 weighs almost 4 pounds, 3.9 pounds. So it literally is 3 times the weight and looks like about 3 times, I think it's maybe 2.5 times the size of the strobe. So traveling with a set of 4 or 5 of these is going to be much, much easier. I did a calculation, and by the way, the YS-250 also takes a very large charger, and I don't know if you've seen the battery packs, but the battery packs have really caught the eye of a lot of security people all over the world. And I've almost had them taken away. And I know many people have had them just removed from their baggage because they've got a little wire coming off. And God, if anything ever looked like part of a bomb, they certainly look like it. It does say made in Japan right on it. But anyways, you know, security people don't always know that, and they want to be safe and keep us safe. I don't have to worry about that. But total weight lost to carry 5 strobes and batteries and chargers in my kit was over 14 pounds. And that probably doesn't sound like a ton, but trust me, if I can get my kit down 14 pounds, I won't be paying those baggage charges anymore. I used to walk up to the airline counter, put my stuff down and just hold my credit card out. And the attendants would look at me like, well, what's up with that? I knew everything was overweight. That was the only way I could travel. I'm not going to have to do that with the D3s anymore. So I'm very excited about that. So let's talk about, get a little bit out of the technical stuff here, and let's talk about some of the cool accessories that you can pick up for the D3. Remember, the standard diffuser comes with it, and there are 2 different, well, actually 3 different mount styles, maybe even you could call it 4. It comes with a 1-inch ball, a 25 millimeter ball. This will fit in ultralight clamps, BTS clamps, Who's Ever clamps. All the clamps work for them. CNC, of course, makes their own arm sets, and they work just great with them. We went to the nifty yellow O-rings because our logo has always been black and yellow. So we have that. And we also have the standard CNC mount. It's this forked mount that's available. So that's the mount that always used to come on the YS-D2J, and then we threw a ball into the box. Well, the feedback we got from our dealers was that everybody was just taking this off, chucking it in a drawer somewhere, losing it, and just putting a ball in. Everybody wanted to use an arm system that had a third clamp, basically, and clamp onto the ball. I kind of prefer this, especially for wide angle, not so much for macro. So with this, you know, you need an arm end like this that would slide into the fork like so, and then the wing nut screw would go into it there. I don't have one, but there's also, you can just use a little imagination, a ball that you can get that's on about a 45-degree angle, I believe. It's kind of neat because the biggest problem we have when we shoot fisheye is we don't keep the strobes back far enough. We always start to light the corners and the edges, the backscatter in the corners and the edges of our images. So having it automatically like that when you're pointing your strobe forward for a wide angle fisheye shot is kind of a neat thing. That's available as well. I believe the price is $25 to pick up one of these, and I don't remember off the top of my head what the other mount is. It's probably $25, $35, somewhere in that range. Nothing too expensive. So we have 2 main mounts, the ball mount, this mount, and of course then there's that accessory 45-degree mount. The ball mount comes with it. The CNC mount does not, but it is available for 25 bucks. We also have 2 ways to connect to the camera. We use our fiber optic cable. Our FO cables are a multi-strand cable with 613 cores in them. So if 612 cores break, you still have 1 core that's enough to transfer the light. That'll work. And it plugs into the bottom here. There are side ports. Those are to daisy chain multiple strobes together. Don't get confused by that and call into the dealer and say, hey, it's not working. It goes into the black port down on the bottom. And then we put this cool little kind of a attachment point here for the cable, so it can slip right under that. We used to have something that was much more abrasive to the cable itself, and you can see the cable sheath starting to deteriorate there. If you lift this a little bit, you won't have those problems. My favorite, I do use these, but my favorite is still the standard type of a sync cable. I have one connected over here. I'm not going to put it onto the camera, but that would plug into the strobe right down here. So we can put the standard 5-pin type Nikonis type CNC sync cable right in here. It's the same cable that Enon uses. Matter of fact, they buy them from us, or they used to buy them from us. I don't know if they still do, but they used to buy the cables from us, and they come down with an Iconis type of an end. If you're an Icolite user, Icolite does make an Iconis type of end for their housings, so you can get that. And different housing manufacturers make different connections. We always use that Iconis connection, or we use the fiber optic connections also on all of our housings. So 2 ways at least to trigger it, and a couple ways, maybe 3 ways to mount it. Now, accessory wise is where we're going. We also created a dome diffuser, and the dome diffuser is a real important part for the kit if you shoot fisheye. If you shoot a Sigma 15 or a Canon 8-15 or a Nikon 8-15 or an old Canon 15 or a old or a 10.5 for Nikon, or an old Nikon 16, those are all fisheye lenses. They see about 180 degrees on the diagonal, so they're very, very wide. So in order to get the kind of beam coverage we want, we're able to put this diffuser onto the front of the strobe. And of course, you'd have to remove that from the string. You want that dangling there. And when you put this guy on, now you're getting, I'll put that a little lower so that string's down there. Hang out of the way. So now you see this little bubble sticking out of the front of it. Well, what that does is that gives you an angle now, a beam angle of 170 degrees across the front face here. So that's actually wider than a fisheye lens, because a fisheye lens is 180 on the diagonal, not 180 straight across. And they do, some fisheyes vary just a little bit as well. And it's 150 vertically. So even if you horse the strobe around in a different position real quick to change your lighting, which I do all the time, almost every set I shoot, I change where the lighting's coming from, you're still getting at least 150. And that covers a fisheye lens straight across in most cases, or at least it's enough coverage where you've really covered it. We're going to show you some images at the end of this, and I'll tell you when I used this particular dome diffuser. This is an add-on, an additional accessory. It's only $50, so it's really, really cheap. Another one that was really exciting for me, because I begged for this for years, and I used to use some pretty crude stuff, is the snoot. The snoot narrows the beam of the light down to about a 1-inch beam. It's 25 millimeters across. 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch, 25 millimeters. So it's about 1 inch across, basically. So we narrowed the beam, but we didn't go too crazy with it. I've used snoots forever, and I've made all kinds of homemade snoots. And if you get the beam too wide, it doesn't really give you the effect you want. But if you get the beam too narrow, it may just make it very difficult to use the snoot. These are hard enough. If you really want to frustrate yourself, get out on a surgy day and try to use snoots on really tiny subjects. So it's critical now to be able to aim the strobe with the modeling light from the strobe. So one of the problems we had was, because we put the flash tubes in the center, we don't have the modeling light right in the center, so it'll come right down the tube on the snoot. The modeling light, the target light, as we like to call it, is up there, focusing light, whatever you want to call it. By the way, that focusing light is 4 times brighter than the YS-D2J. I wouldn't call it a video light by any stretch unless you were working up really, really close. I'm guessing it's somewhere around 300, 400 lumens on its highest power, and it does have 2 settings, so you can go low power, not drain the batteries as quick. So what we did was, inside the snoot, I'm not sure that you can see this, but there's a prism right up here. So that prism catches the light from the top, the 12 o'clock position up here. And yes, you can put the snoot on upside down, so be careful. The word CNC will be upside down if you do it, so that's a hint. So like this, now when I turn this on, hopefully I'm not going to blind anybody. This does have that. Turn the power on would help. Okay, so there, I think you can see that, and we'll put it down to low power so it's not blinding the video camera too bad. But you can see it's aiming right down the tube of the snoot there real nicely. So if you want to aim at your subject, get the snoot right on it, it's much, much easier to do. So we've got a 1-inch opening, and we did set the system up so that maybe in the future, if we find it really, really necessary, we do have it so that this little nozzle will come off the end. I'm trying to do this on camera, so let's hope I don't break it. Don't demo this too much if you get a set of these, but they do come off. You'll see that we also put a nice diffuser in there. One of the things that snoots will do is they'll concentrate the light and give you the harshest looking lighting that you've ever seen. So you really need to work the angles on your lighting. Don't just aim them straight from the camera, or you're going to have some real ugly looking lighting and harsh shadows. So we put a little diffuser in there as well. So in the future, we may, I'm not saying we are going to, we may narrow this down or do something different with it. I don't know. The sky's the limit right now. Right now, we're selling these snoots like crazy. Can't keep them in stock. It seems like every one of these we sell a snoot with it. Some people are buying a single snoot and using 2 strobes. I'm not quite sure what the effect of that is, because as you're going to see in the images, part of the reason I like to use a snoot is to kind of get rid of the background light. A lot of the little critters that we find all over the world, especially here in California, are in what we call detritus, if you want to use the technical term. The untechnical term is crap patch, or the crap on the bottom. It's all the old seaweed and gunk, and some of these things, the nudibranchs and the little fish that live in there, are phenomenal creatures and very, very interesting, but they like to live in that crappy area. And the stuff's light, you can kick it up. So one of the benefits of a snoot like this is to remove the potential for backscatter and also keep that nice dark background nice and dark by not throwing light out there. So using a single snoot, I'm not quite sure what the benefit of that would be, but maybe someone can explain that one to me sometime. Maybe I don't get it. So that's the snoot. I've got one other accessory here that I haven't got to play around with too much. This tiny little thing is $50 also. Oh, snoot, by the way, is $75. So dome is $50. This little slave prism is $50, and the snoot $75. This guy will plug in to the fiber optic sync port on your YS-D3. Matter of fact, I believe it works on a D2J, though I can't swear it because I haven't tried it. And let's get this thing out of the way here real quick. And wherever you aim it, if there's a light, another strobe within 3 meters, it will trigger the strobe remotely. So you could put this strobe out on a little gorilla pod, or one of those little knife-looking things with a ball head on it and a clamp that one of the companies makes it. You can stick down into the sand and you can use it as a backlight. A real cool idea. Or you could put it inside of an airplane cockpit. As long as you stay within 1 meter of this flash prism, it should trigger just fine. So you don't have to use extra long fiber optic cables and all that. If you're staying further away, of course, then you'd have to go to a custom set of fiber optic cables. But for $50 to throw one of those in the bag and be able to use a strobe remotely for all kinds of different creative lighting effects is really, really a cool idea. So that pretty much covers the all of the accessories that I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to turn the strobe on again just to show you another feature of the strobe I kind of breezed by before. The strobe has basically 3 or 4 different modes, and they're color coded. So the first click from off to there is what we call pre-flash cancellation mode. And that may be a common mode if you've used the YS-D2J. That's for those of you that are using compact cameras or DSLRs or mirrorless that have a flash, and you're triggering through the fiber optic cables, the strobe, with the onboard flash. So that'll cancel that little pre-flash pulse that a lot of those cameras will pull it out. Oh, your Olympuses, your Canons, Nikons, whatever else is out there. There's all kinds of them. So we've tried to make the strobe as compatible as possible with all of those. And we have periodic firmware upgrades that we will do. And we have compatibility charts as well. The next level is what they call just straight old manual, just plain Jane manual. So basically the fiber optic cable is just going to trigger the strobe, or if I've got a 5-pin Nikonis connector on here, sync cord, that will just trigger it manually, and then you control the strobe with power over on this side. Then we've got TTL mode, and TTL has 2 modes. We have the DS TTL2 mode, which is our more refined TTL, very, very accurate type TTL. It works with either a pop-up flash on most cameras, as long as they're on the compatibility chart, and it will also work with our YS converters. So if you don't want to have to calculate the flash, or good enough is close enough, TTL works very, very well in many of those cases. Some people don't like it for wide angle, they want control. Generally in wide angle, I don't use TTL because I'm using different power settings on each flash because I'm shooting multiple subjects. So I've got model in the distance, and the model is looking over at the anemones at 4 feet, and the anemones are at 2 feet. So I've got to be able to change those ratios. If I use TTL, it's difficult to do, although you can adjust the power setting on our strobes and get a little bit of a change on there. It's just not quite as much as I need when I need it. So I do tend to shoot manual in those situations. Now, if I'm shooting real hot situations where animals are flying around all over the place and I don't have time to check things out, I've got, ravenous bull sharks coming at me, and one moment they're 3 feet away and I'm shooting out there and everything's set up, and the next moment they're 6 inches off my dome port, which is where I like to have them. I'm going to overexpose that shot, obviously. So TTL works very, very well for those types of shots, especially if that subject is filling a large portion of the frame. That way the camera's light meter can adjust properly. So TTL does have its advantages. Now there are 2 TTL modes, as I mentioned. This light blue is DS TTL2. And if you hold the modeling light on for 5 seconds, it should change to dark blue. And that's what we call just standard slaved TTL. I'm gonna shut that light off. And that dark blue mode is a slave TTL for some of the cameras that we just couldn't get DS TTL2 compatibility with. It's very tricky to create this kind of firmware and in the electronics so that it works with everything across the board, and then new cameras will come out and there you go. But we do have that mode, so you still have TTL on other cameras that just are too finicky to work with our system in DS TTL. Doesn't mean they're a bad camera, it just means we just couldn't quite make it so that it would work with that. So there's that. We've got this backlight panel, so if you're diving at night, you can see what mode you're in. We've redesigned this, and then the power controller is pretty straightforward over here. Basically, it shows in guide numbers starting with 33 at full power all the way around to 1 at low power. I never go there, to tell you the truth, but pardon me. There's 11 steps of power here, so 11 different clicks. The basic ones that you'll find yourself using the most for wide angle will be full power, half power, quarter power, and eighth power. Those will do most of what you want to do. And then if you're shooting some real little macro subjects and maybe you're doing some backlighting and some fancy stuff and snooting, maybe you want some of these lower powers over here. At the quarter power mode and the eighth power mode, there's almost no recycle time. In quarter power, it'll fire 3-4 times, and then it'll dump a shot. So in other words, the light won't fire, it needs a little recycle. And then the 5th shot will pop up again. That's pretty handy. In the quarter, that would be at guide number 16. And then at guide number 11, which is basically 8th power, it'll just shoot continuously until you tire it out, basically. And it has a shutdown circuit. So if you burst shoot it, especially above water to show your friends how cool your new strobe is, you'll overheat it. The overheating emergency circuit will come on and your strobe will shut down. You haven't killed it, it's just shut down and it's allowing itself to cool. So you're gonna have to shut it off, wait for it to cool and turn it back on. Underwater, you won't have as big an issue. But if you do a lot of burst shooting underwater, it is possible to get a little bit too much heat going and the circuitry will override and you'll have to shut the strobe off for a couple of minutes and turn it back on. That's so we don't have a system that will burn up, because if this thing creates too much heat, and with those batteries on the inside of there, you could cause one heck of a fire, and we don't want that. So that's basically the rundown of the features and the benefits of the strobe. The retail price is $849.95. Which is a pretty fair price. You'll see a lot of our competitors coming in at almost 2 times that nowadays. So we were able to put quite a bit into this package and get the performance of a YS-250, beam angle, recycle time, guide number, duration of flashes at about 1/3 the weight. So that's the D3.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for that overview, Andy. That was very comprehensive.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's pretty exciting to have all this stuff.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I've been shooting this strobe as well over the last few months, and I've really been enjoying the strobe. I personally own D2Js, and I'm very much thinking about upgrading. I think it's worth the upgrade. I mean, the speed of the strobe, the fact that it's called the YS-D3 Lightning, is really telling to what it can do. And it's really one of the fastest strobes that I've been able to shoot. And I live up in the Pacific Northwest, where the water is even darker than California. and I find that it's super useful because that high speed recycle time is really on the lower end powers of that strobe. And so I'm always at the low end of what I'm shooting, and I'm always shooting at quarter power, half power, and I can always basically make use of that burst mode. So
Yeah, Nirupam has written some what three reviews on the strobe now, or is it two?
yeah, around maybe 3 or 4. Yeah,
Seems like I've read, oh, maybe even four. I've read a bunch
yeah,
of them. They were all excellent, and the photography was great. It looked like they really served you well. If you don't mind, let's take a look at some images, get out of
yeah.
all this techno crap and accessory sales job, and show people what those little strobes will do. So again, keeping in mind that we've both been using this strobe for about 7 months now, and during COVID, of course, so we weren't able to really travel the world like normal, but did some local diving, and we've got some great local diving here. So this is an image of a California sea lion pup, and these are high speed. This is the fastest thing you're ever going to shoot in the water. It's faster than a shark. The maneuverability is incredible. So you need a high speed strobe to really be able to capture, 2 or 3 images and hope that you get just the right one. It is a little bit of a spray and pray kind of a situation. And what you'll find is they move their heads around, and they're moving so fast that you've always got to use a really, really high shutter speed. Well, shutter speed doesn't affect the strobe, it affects the background. It's aperture that's going to affect how far the light's going to travel underwater. Most of these shots that I do with sea lions, I like to get them up close with a fisheye lens. So I will use either a standard diffuser, and occasionally I'll use a dome diffuser on them as well. Now the dome diffuser takes, what is it, about a stop and a half of light, I think. So it's substantial. So you really got to run it down at about a quarter power or eighth power, which is plenty for this. This particular shot was taken with the standard diffuser, which loses about a little over half a stop of light. So it doesn't affect the strobe that much. The guide number comes down from 33 to 28. And it does a good job. I don't always want to throw a lot of light around on these types of shots because there's a ton of bubbles and a ton of stuff in the water that the diver is stirring up, and we're in shallow water where the surge is stirring it up and the sea lions stir it up. So you could, if you throw too much light out there, you're just going to light a lot of sand and crap. So
Now,
this one worked great.
I did have a question for you, Andy. So one of the things that I noticed with the dome diffuser is that there was significantly less backscatter in my images. And I was just wondering if you noticed the same thing when you're shooting sea lions, when you did throw those dome diffusers.
Well, the problem with the sea lions is, and you know this, you've shot them, is there's just a ton of gunk and ton of crap in the water. You can't get away from it. And it doesn't matter how you angle your strobes or what you do. Yes, the dome diffuser will make a little bit of difference, but what I'm seeing in my experimentation with the sea lions in particular has been that between the dome diffuser and the and losing that much light, and the standard diffuser and being able to keep that light and that faster recycle, my overall keeper ratio to delete ratio is much higher with the standard diffuser. So I'm not getting enough light on the sea lions with the dome diffuser unless they get right on the dome port. And when they do that, it's fine, but they don't always do that. If the bulls are there, they kind of wrangle them around and chase them back up on the rocks and all over the place. And you'll be having fun for 4 or 5 minutes waiting for another shot, and the bull comes by and the bull's the boss. You marvel when a 600, 700 pound sea lion comes by you and looks at you like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So that my experience with the backscatter with the dome diffuser on the sea lions hasn't been that great. On other things, yes. So let's go ahead to another image. Now, this sea lion is up real close. So the dome diffuser would work perfectly in this case. This one I just shot last Saturday. I did use a standard diffuser on it because we've had a lot of backscatter in the water, a lot of surgy water, but nice and clear water. So that's kind of the same situation, only of course, this guy stopped a little bit and kind of looked at his reflection in the dome port.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous shot.
Yeah, I love it when they do that. It's just like playing with dogs. Here's a shot that I backlit with the little prism, and you can see that there's a very sharp line to the outline of this little tiny coralline sculpin. This guy's about 2 inches long. So I had a remote strobe and then 2 strobes snooted, and the backlit was snooted also, and then off to the side just a little bit. I think it was off to the right, off to kind of the 2 o'clock position, if you think of it in a flat linear thing as this image is. So I was able to get just the right amount of light on the front of him, nowhere else, and then bring in a nice sharp rim light from my right side, or the right side of the image, basically. So that one I wanted to throw in there because I like the kind of the expression on his face. You can see a little sparkle in his teeth, like he's getting ready to bite my camera. Next. This little nudibranch called Tritonia festiva, and this was actually out on our rec site, the Yukon, down pretty deep. And these guys typically are deep in Southern Cal. They live on the red gorgonia and they feed on it, they lay eggs on it, etc. And this was just with the two snoots, just a straight snooted shot, so I could keep a nice black background.
You know, I've noticed that you know, the diffuser on the snoot really makes a different quality photo, especially with the white nudibranchs. There's something about it where it's not harsh lighting, and it's almost like the brighter whites on the, you know, the highlights on the Tritonia, they don't pop quite as much, and it's just a different quality of the image. I don't know if you noticed the same thing.
Oh yeah, all my homemade diffusers would do all kinds of crazy things with white, and I would have a hard time in post, you know, in Photoshop and Lightroom, trying to correct it, having to pull the whites way down, and then getting weird color fringing, and not fringing, but color hues and changes, shifts. So the reason that you notice that with our snoots is because we put that little diffuser inside the snoot itself. If we didn't put that in there, we'd get that same harsh light that you would see from the homemade snoots and a lot of the other manufacturers that make snoots. Not knocking their snoots or anything, everybody's got a different tool for a different job. But these are probably the cheapest that I know of and the easiest to use. And they're completely proprietary to the YS-D3. I mean, they lock right in, just like one of our diffusers locks right into the front of the strobe. So they're really easy. So you may find that you buy a set of snoots, and if your main thing has been wide angle and you start using snoots, you get so frustrated, you put them away for a while. But at, you know, $75 a piece, $150 for a set, it won't cost you a fortune to go and experiment with some snoots. Let's try the next one.
Yep.
Wide angle shot. This is a standard diffuser because I'm working up real close with a fisheye lens. Not trying to light the model. Of course, that's just a diver silhouette. And I've got, it's my wife, Allison, and she's holding a solo light, just to give a little highlight and draw the eye back there. But the main thing is the anemones in the front. So you can see the good job that these strobes are able to do down at low power. This was up in Point Lobos near Monterey, California. Next. Now here's a wider dispersal. This is a circular format shot that both the Canon and the Nikon 8-15 will do. So if you go full wide to their 8mm position, you'll get this circular effect, this real fisheye effect, true fisheye. This is a portion of the top of the Canadian destroyer Yukon, which you've probably heard of. It's out in Rec Alley here, right off our shores in San Diego. You know, it's 15 minutes from my house. And that's a large tower over to the right side. And then that roundish looking thing is actually a radar boom. And then there's some other stuff in there. I imagine some of the stuff was being piped up to the radar. So this is a very large area. Diameter in this picture would probably be close to 10 feet. So you can see the kind of, ooh, throat's getting dry. You can see the kind of coverage that the dome diffuser will give you. And even on the further subject, which is on the right over there, that big rail and stuff where someone could stand, which is a good foot and a half further away. Even at that, that's lit pretty well. So you can see the color in the Corynactis that's encrusted this whole piece of the wreck. So I'm always very excited to shoot this portion of the wreck. Next image. Now this is just a non-circular fisheye view. So this is back to the 15mm focal length of that same thing. You can see that the thing over on the right, that bridge over there, that flying bridge is removed from the picture just by nature of the focal length here. And now we see the radar boom and the apparatus, a diver swimming over it, and then a fish in the foreground. Now this is with the standard diffusers here. So they do a real good job on coverage as well. So it's a pretty large area. Now, go ahead. This is the rear gun, which is huge, not by battleship destroyer standards or anything, but it's a huge area to try and light. And I've had nothing but trouble over the years trying to light it with my 250s. And with the dome diffusers on the D3s, back where I had to be, which is about 6 feet away, believe it or not, and then a diver over the top. So this is one of the best shots I've gotten of that so far. It's not, I don't think this is any superb or great shot by any stretch. It's not what's in my mind quite yet, but it shows the beam angle area that this little YS-D3 lightning will put out, especially when you spread it out with a dome diffuser, and keeping in mind that I'm losing a stop and a half. So I've got the strobes turned up to full, of course, and I don't remember what the f-stop was, probably somewhere around f5, 6, 6, 7, somewhere in there, because I'm so far back and with that dome diffuser on. But what amazed me was the coverage I was able to get just with 2 lights, 2 very, very small lights with AA batteries. Next. Here's the flip side of the radar boom up on the top. Also very interesting, a little bit closer shot. And again, this is with just the standard diffuser. Let's look at another one. I think I've got one more. Yes, the prop. So this prop is roughly 6, 7 feet in diameter. It's not your normal prop. It's got a shroud around it. The shipwreck's laying on its side, so we're able to get to this one prop. One prop's buried down in the sand, but we're able to get to this one prop and all the light that's all around it. And again, with the dome diffusers and having to back up probably from the prop shroud itself, I'm probably about 4 or 5 feet. And from that big cone coming out of the center of the prop, I'm probably 2.5 feet from there. So getting real good, even lighting. You can see it's a little stronger on that dome coming out a little bit on that right strobe than it is over on the left side. I had the left side turned all the way up and the right strobe turned down, not quite turned down enough. I'm going to turn it down one more click next time I go out, try that. Another circular format shot. Macro. So again, with the snoots, you're able to keep these nice dark backgrounds. It limits the backscatter and it helps you to concentrate the light on the important parts of the image, which in this case, of course, are the eyeball on this yellowfin fringe head, the mouth, and the little punk rocker haircut thing there, I guess. So the snoots did a great job on this as well. Next.
I believe that's all of them.
All of them. All right. Well, I'm glad we were able to share some images. Did you have some that you wanted to put up?
Yeah, I can share a few.
Let's look at them.
I selected a few of these images just to show, when you push the strobe to the max, what it can really do. So a lot of these are more not really for the quality of the image, but more to show what the strobe can do. This one I just wanted to show, you can still get black backgrounds with the D3 without using the snoot, and this is one of those instances. But with the snoot, it's a lot more pronounced. But I do think, with the beam coming from the D3, it's really good for illuminating clear subjects like this. I think this is a Santa Barbarensis, a Janus.
Janus, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I do like the strobe for its ability to do that. This is a very close focus wide angle shot with a fisheye of some zoanthids. And what the shot's really showing here is just how good the strobes are for close focus wide angle. They don't really leave too much shadow. There's a little bit of shadow in the foreground, but the strobes are small enough. They're not like the 250s. They're not like some of those other competitor strobes that are a lot larger that have a really high, a really quick shooting speed. The D3s are a bit smaller, so you can bring them in and you won't get the shadows in the front. This is an example. I don't think I used the dome diffusers. I used the normal diffusers. It's just another circular fisheye shot. It shows how good the coverage is. And I was shooting at really low powers on this strobe because I live in the Northwest. It's very dark. So I'm able to get really quick recycle times. This is another very similar to that Tritonia shot. I picked it to show what the diffuser in the snoot can do. If you look at the highlights on the white part of this Dorota nudibranch, you can see that they're not blown out. So this Strobe, basically, when it comes to post-processing, it takes you, a few steps ahead. So you don't have to bring down your highlights. It's already done for you. And therefore you have a lot more detail in the highlights. And you're really able to bring out, um, a lot more quality in the image. And this is taken with a Nikon Z6. So it's not a very high resolution camera.
Yeah, that Rhinophore is really sharp.
Yeah, it's really sharp and the highlights are really nice for it only being a 24, 25
Wow,
megapixel camera.
some great detail.
Yeah. This one I'm actually going to go backwards. So this is a nudibranch without the snoot, and this is just showing what the snoot can do. It's just one after the other. I'm not very happy with this shot, but it shows just how flat of an image you can have until you bring on that snoot, and then you can really create some contrast with the lighting. And
Yeah,
again, the highlights are really nice, and they're brought down so you have a lot of that detail.
yeah, it's amazing when you look at it like that way. The darker background is just makes the subject pop, and it just makes it more interesting. Your eye is just drawn to it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Here it's just kind of you almost want to take it out with a
What is that? Yeah.
with a spot healing tool. Yeah. So this is a shot that really shows what you can do with the dome diffusers, and I really wanted to show that with this shot. So this is probably the worst visibility I've ever taken a wide angle photo in. I believe it was maybe 2 to 3 feet of visibility.
Oh,
What I was amazed with was I did almost no correction when it came to backscatter removal. So with a really close focused wide angle image like this with a fisheye lens and using those dome diffusers on the D3s, I was amazed. I didn't have any backscatter. I had a shadow of the kelp, which I was impressed I could even get there. And the lighting is nice and soft and really even. There's no hot spots or anything like that, which made it so that this anemone on the side, it's well lit too, even though it's being kind of hidden by the other one. So,
yeah, it's nice soft lighting, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, I was really happy with this shot given the conditions. This is another one just showing how soft the lighting can be. I think I did have the dome diffusers on this one. I personally like shooting with the dome diffusers. It did eliminate the backscatter a little bit, but it was just enough light to bring out colors in that sea line.
Well, the dome diffuser will not pronounce the backscatter as much as the standard diffuser.
Yeah.
It's the typical photography dilemma. What am I trading off for? When you use the standard diffuser, you get more backscatter for sure, but your light is more powerful. So if you need the light, you got it. The dome diffuser limits that a little bit. So
yeah,
that looks really soft. Did you take any backscatter out of this? Like I see a couple little things in it, and that's it.
yeah. I don't think I did. I think I did a quick edit on this one.
Yeah.
Like there's a few pieces down in this corner
Right.
here.
And,
The detail's not perfect. I think it was a little cloudy in the water, but
yeah.
yeah, I think it turned out nice. I mean, with this kind of water, I took that trade off of not needing the extra power.
Amazing. I like that.
This one I was about I think 20 feet below. It was really good visibility. The reason I wanted to show this is with the dome diffusers, I was able to get this whole scene lit. And these are black coral, so they're actually really large stands of black coral. Each coral might be about 5 to 6 feet, as you can see, compared to that diver. So I'm lighting up an area that's probably, I want to say 20 feet. And I'm doing that with two strobes, but I was just amazed I could get a full scene like that.
It's hard to tell, how big that is.
Yeah.
Where was that shot taken?
So this was in the Sea of Cortez, out in the Midriff Islands, and I think I was about 100, maybe 110 feet down, and I think that diver was at about 70 or 80 feet. So.
Oh no, you didn't go deeper and violate the PADI standards, did you?
No, no. Yeah, that was my last shot.
Wow, that's amazing. That's 20 feet across. Holy.
Yeah, yeah. It was really pretty incredible.
I've really got to get those dome diffusers out a little bit more and play with them. I've used them a good deal on the Rex, but not so much for anything else.
Yeah. I think with certain reefscapes like this, it really If you're really deep, when there's not that much light, and they can reach that distance, then it's really, really useful.
Right, the background's so dark anyways, you don't need all that light. You're just gonna overlight things with that. That's great.
Yeah,
Great use of those diffusers. Wow,
thanks.
that jumps.
Yeah. So this is a shot I was really happy with because it's a testament to the speed of these strobes. For anybody who shoots angelfish or has been in the Sea of Cortez and tried to shoot one of these, I think they're king angels. Um, they're very difficult to do. They're very quick, and I took this photo as a series of 5 photos that I took within the span of a second.
Wow.
Um, and I mean, the lighting was consistent every time. Each shot in that series was perfect. So I was really just happy with the fact that this strobe can keep up. Um, and then this actually, so this isn't a good shot. This is a series of photos. I wanted to show you guys, this is my lightning test. So I shot my camera at 6 frames per second. I believe this is at half power, and I just wanted to show you each frame of the shot so you can see the difference in lighting. And what you're really looking at is there's about, a maximum half stop of a difference between each shot.
Mhm.
So to me, that's pretty amazing. That means even if you're shooting where there is a recycle time and you still have 6 frames a second where you're getting enough lighting to have a usable image. Um, so, for anybody who's a cold water diver, dives a little bit deeper, doesn't need as much light in their photos. They just need to light up the colors. You can shoot whatever you want, capture any kind of action. I mean, 6 frames a second is really, really quick,
Yeah,
and you can get some really usable images. So yeah, that's the end of kind of what I wanted to show.
really nice, Nirupam. That's some great stuff.
Thanks.
Boy, I can't wait to see the feedback we start getting when we start selling more of these strobes. With COVID-19, sales have been kind of slow all year, and everybody's just kind of holding off, waiting to do their trips and things, and not much going on. It's just starting to break loose a little bit now. And now, of course, we get an uptick, but
Yeah.
I can't wait to see when these really get out and the world opens back up again sometime in 2021, and people start using these things creatively. Just in
Yep.
the few months we've been able to shoot them, I mean, we've gotten some nice shots, and the performance is there. They definitely are on par, if not a little bit better than a YS-250. Believe it. I mean, I never thought I'd say that. Everybody that knows me that's watching this is probably laughing because of the way I used to boast about the YS-250. But truth is, I think the YS-250 is going to have to get retired at this point. I know that mine are going up on the shelf. I haven't even recharged the batteries now for months. It's been all YS-D3.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue to say. So we're having sales on these strobes at Blue Water Photo over Black Friday, and having packages with the D3, and then I believe the YS-D2J is on sale.
Yeah.
So give us a call if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out. And is there anything else you want to add, Andy?
No, I think that's it. I'm just really looking forward to what other people are going to start doing with these strobes. I've seen a lot here, and they've just impressed me day in and day out on just about everything I can shoot in California. So
Yeah.
get them over to Indonesia or the Philippines or Fiji or someplace on a trip and see how they do over there. But everything tells me so far so good. So
Yeah,
love
I
it.
think we're going to see some really amazing content with these strobes. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to see any more content from us, please like and subscribe. Reach out to us if you have any questions about these strobes or any other products from CNC. We're a great resource. We're here to answer any questions and help you guys figure out what you need to get on that next dive trip. So yeah, thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody. See you later. See you out in the water, hopefully soon.